My name is Lina, and at my brother Tyler's Harvard graduation, my parents disowned me, not quietly, not in some private, polite family conversation. No, they did it on stage. In front of hundreds of clapping strangers. I never expected applause or even praise, but deep down, I had carried a small, aching hope that maybe, just maybe, this moment would be different. That maybe my parents would look past old disappointments and remember the daughter who once stayed up all night helping Tyler write his college essay, who covered for his teenage mistakes, who loved them fiercely even when they forgot to love her back. But what they didn't know was that I had already uncovered the secret they were desperate to hide, and by the time I was done, the world they'd worked so hard to control would be the one left in shambles. I arrived early at Harvard Yard, not because I was eager, but because some small, stubborn part of me needed to prove to myself that I still belonged. The campus buzzed with energy, families holding bouquets, students in gowns squealing in delight, cameras flashing under the golden morning sun. But as I walked toward the seating tent, all I could feel was the tight knot in my chest. From across the green, I saw them, my mother, Marissa in her signature pale blue suit, standing poised with a champagne flute already in hand. My father, Richard, in his tailored blazer, checking his watch, the very picture of control. And then there was Tyler, younger by 3 years, beaming under his graduation cap. Honor cords draped across his shoulders, posing for a photo as if the world itself were applauding. They didn't notice me at first. It wasn't until I was within a few steps that Marissa's sharp eyes flicked toward me. Oh, Lina, she said, her voice laced with faint surprise, as if she were recognizing an old acquaintance. You came. I gave a small, tight smile. I got the invitation. She let out a delicate laugh, must have been forwarded. We weren't sure the RSVP reached that far. Richard barely glanced up. Tyler moved toward me hesitantly, giving me a brief hug, his arms tense, his eyes darting sideways toward our parents for approval. I brushed it off the way I'd learned to over the years. But when I approached the seating area, and a staff member handed me a plain white badge with guest printed in unremarkable font, the truth landed in my chest like a stone. I stood there, staring at the badge. No family crest, no ribbon, just guest. I remembered the night Marissa and I designed the Caldwell family crest together. I was 14, so excited to help. We stayed up past midnight, choosing the right font, the right symbol, something elegant and timeless, and now, here I was, invisible in the family I'd once helped shape. The ceremony unfolded like a stage play. I hadn't been cast in. I sat alone in the far left section, next to a sleeping elderly man and a toddler scribbling on our program. When Richard took the stage, I watched his smile spread, warm and practiced. Today, he began, we celebrate the brilliance and determination of our son, Tyler Caldwell. His journey has been nothing short of remarkable. Polite applause, cameras. Click. Tyler dipped his head modestly. Richard continued, his voice sliding into something rehearsed, polished, and today also marks a turning point for our family. We've made the difficult decision to focus on those who align with our family's values. That does not include our eldest daughter, Lina. For a second, the world held its breath, and then nothing, a few whispers, the shuffle of programs, the hum of a phone vibrating somewhere. I sat frozen, hands clasped in my lap, feeling the blood rush to my ears, my body vibrating with the urge to stand, to scream, to disappear, anything but sit there and pretend this wasn't happening. But I didn't move. I stayed perfectly still, perfectly composed, watching the edge of the stage as if it could swallow me whole. At the reception, I hovered near the back. I drifted past tables labeled Caldwell family and guests, reading each name card. Marissa, Richard, Tyler, Aunt Rose, Tyler's roommate, even an old neighbor. Mine was nowhere. A woman I hadn't seen since high school blinked at me. Oh, I didn't know you were coming. Your mom said this was a closed family event. She smiled awkwardly, the kind of smile people give when they're not sure whether to be sorry. I smiled back because it was easier than breaking down. That night I walked home past glowing storefronts and laughing families spilling onto sidewalks, my hands shoved deep in my coat pockets, somewhere between the cafe windows and the subway steps. I realized something sharp and painful. They hadn't forgotten me, they had erased me, not snapped, not broke, tilted, and in that quiet, tilted place, something inside me stirred awake. That night, I sat cross-legged on the floor of my apartment. The graduation program spread open in front of me. My fingers traced the photo on the glossy page. Marissa, Richard, Tyler, framed perfectly beneath the words, "Proud moment for the Caldwell family." No space for me, not even a footnote. I reached for the old yearbook I'd buried in a bottom drawer. Tyler's high school graduation. I flipped to the family tribute page. There they were again, on our old front porch, smiling in the spring sun. I remembered the day we took that picture. I'd been right there beside Tyler, wearing a dress Marissa picked out, smiling stiffly under the weight of her expectations. But in the yearbook, I was gone, cropped out with surgical precision. My breath hitched. I set the book down, heart pounding, and pulled my laptop onto my knees. Years ago, I'd set up the family's cloud drive, neatly organized folders for tax records, donor lists, board meeting minutes. They'd never revoked my access. Arrogance, oversight, either way, it was the crack in the wall they'd left behind. I clicked through folders, eyes blurring as documents filled the screen. Tax filings, investment summaries, charity event budgets. And then, buried in a folder marked holdings _updated, I found it, property transfer authorization final. My heart pounded in my ears as I clicked it open. There it was, my name, bold and unmistakable, and above it, a signature, my signature only. It wasn't mine. The loops on the L were wrong. The curve of the O was too sharp. It was close enough to a quick glance, but to my eyes, it was a clumsy forgery. I dug through a drawer and pulled out an old lease. Side by side, the truth became undeniable. They hadn't just left me off a guest list. They had stolen from me. The beach house in Bar Harbor, the one my father left me in his will, the one where I spent summers painting porch rails and hunting for seashells with Tyler, was gone. Quietly sold, quietly swept away, like I was never part of it at all. My hands shook, but a strange calm spread through my chest. This wasn't rage, not yet. It was something sharper, clearer. At 3 a.m. I called the only person I knew who might tell me the truth. Aunt Ava, I whispered when she picked up. Lina, her voice was thick with sleep. Did you know? There was a long, terrible pause. Baby, I thought they'd tell you. I didn't know what to do. I'm so sorry. I sank to the floor, the cool wood pressing against my back. They didn't just erase me from the family, I said softly. They erased me from everything. For a long moment, neither of us spoke, and then, in the quiet, a thought rose like a blade from deep inside me. They wanted me invisible. They wanted me quiet. But they were about to learn that I had been paying attention, and this time, I wasn't walking away. The Caldwell Foundation gala shimmered under chandeliers, the air thick with soft jazz, perfume, and careful laughter. I slipped in through the side entrance, the velvet envelope tucked tightly in my clutch. My black dress was simple, nothing flashy, but the weight I carried with me was electric. Marissa spotted me first. Her emerald gown sparkled under the lights, her smile poised and sharp. She crossed the room like a queen surveying her court. Lina, darling, she purred, kissing the air near my cheek. You look well. We need to talk, I murmured, steady, calm. Her smile didn't falter, but I saw the flicker in her eyes. Now isn't the time, sweetheart. Let's not create tension. I leaned in slightly. I think you've already done that, Mother. Across the room, I caught Tyler's gaze. He was standing near the bar, shoulders stiff, his glass halfway to his lips. His eyes darted between us, wide, uncertain. He looked like he wanted to cross the room, maybe to say something, maybe to pull me aside. But his feet stayed planted, and I turned away first. The courtroom, days later, was nothing like the grand spaces my parents were used to commanding. It was small, plain, humming with the low murmur of shuffled papers and whispered instructions. I sat beside Philip, my attorney, the velvet envelope, now spread across the table in carefully labeled folders. Marissa sat across from me, arms folded, her face an unreadable mask. Richard sat next to her, staring down at his hands. Tyler was there, too, slouched in the corner, his phone dark for once, his fingers twisting the edge of his sleeve. Philippe's voice was steady as he walked the judge through the evidence, the forged signature on the property transfer, the timeline of bank transactions, the sudden disappearance of my name from trust documents. I watched Marissa's fingers clench slightly on the table. I watched Richard's jaw tighten. And when Philip placed my grandmother's original will on the judge's bench, I saw the flicker of panic ripple across their carefully composed faces. this document. Philip said, names Lina Caldwell as the primary heir to the Bar Harbor property and all related inheritance. Tyler shifted forward in his seat, his mouth parted slightly, as if to say something. But no words came. Richard leaned forward, his voice cracking. On the edges, that version was never supposed to. The judge raised a hand. Intentions are not law, Mr. Caldwell, documents are. The ruling came swift and clean. The Bar Harbor property would return to me. The trust funds were frozen pending audit. And the foundation, their polished, controlled world, was referred for investigation. Marissa exhaled sharply, her voice a hiss. Just loud enough for me to hear. Ungrateful girl, you waited all this time, just to tear us down. I rose slowly, smoothing the front of my jacket, the courtroom buzzing softly behind me. No, mother, I said, my voice calm and even. I waited so I wouldn't tear myself down with you. As I walked out into the cold air, Tyler stepped into my path for a moment. It looked like he might speak. His eyes searched mine, mouth opening, closing. Then, silently, he stepped aside, his shoulders heavy, his gaze falling away. Outside, the winter air hit my skin like a baptism. For the first time in years, I felt the weight of my own name settle on my shoulders, whole and unshakable. I didn't look back. 6 months later, I stood barefoot on the worn wooden floors of the Bar Harbor house, the salty breeze slipping through open windows, carrying the scent of ocean and new beginnings. The walls, once lined with family portraits and silver-framed achievements, were now covered with paintings, sketches, and poems. Laughter floated in from the backyard, where a group of young women were planting wildflowers under the spring sun. I didn't sell the house. I didn't cash out the inheritance. I turned it into something I'd once longed for but never found, a home for young women aging out of foster care, a place where no one was forgotten or erased. The opening day was a blur of nervous energy and quiet pride. We hung paper lanterns across the porch, set mismatched chairs in the garden, and filled the kitchen with the smell of cupcakes and coffee. I walked through the house, greeting each girl by name, listening as they shared dreams of college, jobs, and poetry slams. I marveled at the way hope filled a space when no one was bracing for the next betrayal. One afternoon, an envelope arrived, addressed in Tyler's handwriting, slanted, careful. Unchanged since childhood, inside was a single page, no embellishments.no. Apology speech. Just 10 words, you were right. I'm sorry it took this to see it. I read it once, a small, tired smile tugged at my mouth. I placed it in a wooden box in my bedroom, the one holding old keepsakes I didn't need to display, but couldn't quite let go, and that was enough. At the first poetry night, a little girl from the neighborhood ran up to me with something clutched in her hand, a crumpled, glitter-covered paper badge. This is for you, she whispered shyly, pressing it into my palm. Because you showed up. I knelt down, my throat tightening. Thank you, I murmured, pinning it onto my jacket, right over the spot where the Caldwell crest had once sat. That night, after the house had quieted, and the lantern swayed softly in the breeze, I sat on the porch, with a blanket wrapped around my shoulders. Above me, the sky stretched wide and dark, scattered with stars, and the sound of waves brushed gently against the shore, and it hit me, simple and clear. I didn't need their table anymore. I had built my own, and here in this messy, imperfect, beautiful space, no one was erased. Forgiveness, I had learned, isn't about forgetting or excusing. It's about releasing yourself from the exhausting hope that one day the people who hurt you will finally. I understand, some wounds don't need to be reopened. Some stories don't need rewriting. Sometimes healing isn't about going back. It's about moving forward on your own terms. The wind stirred, carrying laughter from the house behind me, and I felt it settle in my bones. Peace, hard-earned, scarred over, imperfect peace, but mine, fully and freely. For the first time in years, I belonged, not because someone gave me a seat, but because I built one and left the door wide open. The weeks after the courtroom victory were some of the loneliest of my life. I had won on paper the house, the trust, the public acknowledgement of what had been done to me, but there was no parade. No moment of triumph, just a quiet apartment, a pile of legal paperwork, and an inbox full of cold, formal messages. For the first few days, I floated in a strange haze, wandering through my apartment as though it belonged to someone else. The phone rang twice, once from a journalist, once from a foundation donor. I let both go to voicemail. Tyler didn't call. Marissa and Richard certainly didn't. I found myself pulling out old photos from the bottom of a drawer, the ones I hadn't been able to throw away. There we were, me and Tyler on the swing set. Marissa braiding my hair on a summer afternoon. Richard teaching us to skip rocks by the lake. For a moment, I let myself grieve, let myself feel the sharp, aching truth that no courtroom could erase. That before there was betrayal, there had been love, but the ache didn't crush me this time. Instead, it became something quieter, a sadness I could hold without letting it drown me. I walked the streets of the city with no particular destination, passing families laughing over coffee, couples huddled under scarves, teenagers dragging backpacks behind them. I wondered how many of them carried their own invisible fractures, their own stories of cutting loose, of breaking free, of piecing themselves back together. On one of those walks, I ended up at a small bookstore, tucked between a bakery and a florist. Inside, the smell of old pages and wood polish wrapped around me like a blanket. I spent hours there, thumbing through books I hadn't read in years: poetry, memoir, history, fiction, stories of people who had lost everything and built something better. That was the seed of the idea. It didn't happen all at once, but it began that day, in the quiet of a bookstore, in the stillness of an ordinary afternoon. The realization that what had been taken from me wasn't just a house or a title or a family name. It was my right to write my own future, and I was ready to take it back. Looking back, I've realized something I wish I'd known years ago. Sometimes the hardest thing we ever do isn't fighting for love. It's knowing when to stop fighting for it in the wrong place. For so long, I measured my worth by the empty chair they left at the table. I thought if I could just work harder, be better, prove myself louder, maybe they would see me. But the truth is, when people choose not to see you, no amount of effort will open their eyes. Walking away was never about revenge. It was about survival. It was about claiming my right to exist fully, unapologetically, even if no one clapped for me at the finish line. I've learned that family isn't about who shares your last name, but who shares your heart. It's the friend who calls when you go quiet, the aunt who whispers truth when no one else will, the stranger who offers kindness with no expectation in return. We spend so much of our lives trying to heal old wounds with old tools, hoping maybe this time the people who hurt us will come around, change, apologize, fix what they broke. But real healing often starts the moment we decide to stop waiting, the moment we turn inward and say, I deserve peace anyway. Now, when I sit on the porch of the Bar Harbor house, watching girls dance barefoot in the grass, I feel something I never thought I'd feel again: lightness. It's not perfect. Some days, grief still slips in like a tide, but even on the hard days, I am no longer small, no longer invisible. I am the architect of my life. I am the keeper of my own peace. So to anyone who knows the sting of being left out, of being written out of the story, hear this: you were never just a side character. You were always meant to be the author, and your story, when you choose to claim it, is more powerful than you've ever been told. The waves still whisper against the shore, the house behind me hums with laughter, and as the stars rise one by one above the dark ocean, I know this much is true: I am home. Not because they welcomed me back, but because I finally learned to welcome myself.